Masechet Nedarim Daf Pe Gimel. We mentioned a machloket at the end of the last daf between Shemuel and Rabbi Yochanan regarding if a woman makes a vow about two loaves of bread. One is really nice, fresh, beautiful piece of bread, and the other one is stale, not tasty bread. And therefore, the husband surely can annul the part of the vow regarding the fresh bread because that's inui nafesh. That is an affliction to her. She's looking at this nice piece of bread and she would certainly want to eat it. So the husband can annul that. Everyone agrees regarding that. Question is, what about the other one? Do you say that once she makes a vow regarding one of them, so she can also he can also undo the entire thing? That was Shemuel's opinion. All right, since he does one, he does the entire. So he undoes the entire vow, and therefore she can't eat both. Rabbi Yochanan, however, says no. He only can undo half of the vow. The vow applies to both loaves. He can undo the part of the vow that has to do with the nice fresh loaf, because that is depriving herself. It's affliction. But the other one, the stale bread, has no taste. That's not an affliction. Nobody wants to eat it anyway. That was Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. And now we're going to challenge Rabbi Yochanan from a couple of sources. Itibe. So first, this is going on the version that Rav Asi asked a question of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan answered that. And so now he's going to challenge it from a Mishnah in Nazir. Haisha shenadra benazir v'ayta shota yain u'metame'a lametim. A woman said, I'm going to be a Nazir. And then she violated it by either drinking wine or she became impure to corpse impurity. Her penalty is that she has to get lashes. We're assuming a case where the husband, let's say she took a vow earlier in the day, to be a Nazir. Then she drank some wine, and afterwards her husband heard about it and annulled her vow. She gets 40 lashes because she violated the vow while the vow was still in effect. And the husband only later undid the vow, but she was a Nazirah at the time, and so she has to sofeget, literally means a sponge. She has to absorb 40 lashes. Hefer la ba'ala. However, if the husband did annul her Nazirah status before she violated it. In other words, she made a vow in the morning. The husband heard about it at noon and said, not in front of her, and said, I annul that vow. Later on in that 2 p.m., she went and drank wine. And then she does not get lashes because at the time that she drank wine, that was already after the nullification, even though she didn't know about it. So as far as she's concerned, she did something bad because she thought it was prohibited. But in fact, it was okay. It's like, if you eat something thinking it's not kosher and you're going to eat it anyway, turns out it actually was kosher. So you don't sin, even though you intended to sin. You still don't sin, so she doesn't get 40. All right, that's the Mishnah. Now, v'yamat mefer lemit'anna ve'en mefer le'she'en mit'anna dilma min yain ti'it la sara heferla min harsan min zag lo heferla tahar la'it la sara v'tispoget arba'im. If you say, like Rabbi Yochanan does, that a husband can only nullify a part of a vow that causes her affliction, and the other half of a vow regarding the bread case, which does not cause her affliction, he has no right to annul that. Well, then, if we apply it here, so if you say she can only undo the part that caused her affliction, not the other part, then you can, it says Dilma, but really means then surely the husband will nullify her vow regarding the wine, which is tasty, and that's an affliction not to have wine. So that part of it will be undone. But regarding the skin and the seeds, that is one of the laws of a Nazir. Nazir not only can't have wine or grape juice, cannot even benefit from the skins of the grapes or even from the seeds. But that is not an affliction. If you tell me, no, you can't have grape seeds. Who wants grape seeds anyway? It's like grape nut cereal, right? Nobody likes that cereal. And so that would not be an affliction. Therefore, according to the Rabbi Yochanan, the law should be that he can nullify part of her Nazirut vow that has to do with wine, but not the part of the Nazirut vow that has to do with the seeds, because that has no affliction. And therefore, should she benefit, maybe the Dilma is going on, that if she does benefit from the seeds or the skin, then she should get 40 lashes. And so here, when the Mishnah says she does not get 40 lashes, that proves that then the Nazirut is entirely undone, completely. Even though she only gets benefit from part of it, she only feels affliction from part of it. Nevertheless, once the husband nullifies part, he nullifies the whole thing. This is a challenge to Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Yosef and Nazirut l'chasayin. Rav Yosef explains, no, Nazirut is different from other types of vows. You can't be half a Nazir. And other types of vows, like with bread, if I say I'm not going to eat both of these loaves, it could be that I'll undo half of it and the other half will still apply. It's even though I'm saying one vow, but the vow applies to two things, so it's possible to separate them. But Nazirut, it doesn't make sense. You can't be a partial Nazir. The Nazirut prohibition cannot apply only to part of a prohibition. You can't say, I'm going to be a Nazir except for Merlot. I really like Merlot. But for Cabernet, that I'm going to make a vow. I won't drink that, but I'll be a Nazir for everything except Merlot. That doesn't make any sense. You can't be half a Nazir. And therefore, once part of it is undone, the whole thing is undone. And here also, it's the same thing. You can't be a Nazir only for the juice, but not the grape skins, right? That doesn't make sense. It's all one prohibition. In a few minutes, we're gonna see whether you can be a Nazir for one of the three prohibitions. A Nazir is prohibited from anything from a grape, from becoming Tameh Lamet, and from cutting hair. So what if, can you be a Nazir only for two of those three? Okay, we're going to come to that. But over here, certainly it applies. You can't be half a Nazir for some parts of the grape, but not other parts. And that explains. So Rabbi Yochanan is certainly consistent. He can agree with that. And I can agree with this Mishnah that you can't separate Nazirut, but you can separate other vows. Okay, good. Now, once we mention this, we're going to go into a bit of a tangent on this concept of Nazirut, even though we answered the question to Rabbi Yochanan already. Then we're going to come back and ask another question against Rabbi Yochanan. So, Amar le Abaye is challenging Rav Yosef's formulation. Ha korban l'chasayin Nazirut ika, el Amar Abaye en Nazirut l'chasayin ve en korban l'chasayin. Abaye is asking Rav Yosef's formulation. You said you can't take upon yourself half of a Nazirut prohibition, but you didn't say anything about the obligation of korbanot. Nazir has to bring korbanot either when they become Tameh Lamet, and also once they successfully finish the different numbers of korbanot they have to bring. So you only said about the Nazirut prohibition, but do you mean to imply that it is possible to be obligated for part of the sacrifices of a Nazir? Because you only said you only said something about the prohibition. So rather, Abaye reformulates what Rav Yosef meant. It's not clear if he's arguing or if he's just clarifying. Let's say he's clarifying. This is what he meant to say is, not only is there no halfway to take upon yourself a Nazir status vow, but there's also no half korban. All right, it's all or nothing. If you're a Nazir, you bring all the korbanot. If you're not, then you bring no korbanot. Okay. Now, me'etibe. We have a challenge on that. The Abaye's formulation regarding being obligated to only some korbanot of a Nazir. And here, Ha'isha שנדרה בנזיר והפרישה בהמתה ואחר כך הפר לה בעלה מביאה חטאת העוף ואינה מביאה עולת העוף. Braita says that a woman becomes a Nazir and she set aside an animal or all her animals for it. Now it doesn't say what the case is, whether she became tameh or she completed her entire Nazirut time period. The sacrifices would be different, and so we'll be able to tell from the sacrifices which one it is. If a Nazir becomes tameh during the time period that they're supposed to be a Nazir, then they have to bring one sheep and two birds of a chatat and an olah. Okay, and that's so one animal and two birds, chatat and olah. When someone finishes being a nazir, they bring three animals, in olah, a chatat, and a shelamim, as well as some menachot. Okay, so three animals if they finish. Okay, so now we can go back here and see. She became a Nazir. She designated the animals that she will have to bring, and then the husband comes and nullifies it. I guess he just heard about it then, nullifies it. She nevertheless has to sacrifice the one of the birds as a chatat. So since it's involving a bird here, probably she became impure. That's the case. So she became impure, and now the other things, the animal, what happens to that if she doesn't own it, like it's her husband's, and okay, it's not consecrated anymore. But the off she still has to bring. But she doesn't have to bring the olah. So you see here that there is a concept of partial obligation of sacrifices. She brings one of the sacrifices, but not the other bird and not the animal. But you, Abaye, you just said that there's no possibility of a partial obligation of sacrifices. So why should she bring one of the birds as a chatat? Okay, so now we're saying, okay, so what do you want to say? The opposite? We're going to answer that question by challenging the opposite presumption. If you say that there is a possibility of partial, then what about a case of a woman like this, who finishes, she says Nazirah for 30 days, and then the husband afterwards hears about it and nullifies her vow at that point. So then what are you going to say? She brings only one of the three animals? That's not the halacha. So we don't say partial animal regarding the three, partial sacrifice regarding the three animals. So you know what? It makes much more sense, so you're going to have a problem if you go that way. Rather, it makes more sense to go with the presumption, and what Abaye said, that you cannot bring partial. And that's why you'd never bring the three animals when she completed. And what about our case when she became tameh? Ela le'olam en korban nechasin nezirut vechatat ha'of dematya mishum dechatat al hasafek. The reason why she brings a chatat ha'of is because she's doing it only out of uncertainty. And there is such a concept of bringing a bird as a chatat for uncertainty. We find such a concept elsewhere. For example, a woman who gave birth to a child, she has to bring a chatat ha'of. What if she's not sure? She had a miscarriage, but the miscarriage was early on, and she's not sure was this an early pregnancy, or was it just blood? She's not sure. She can bring a chatat of a bird, misafek. And so too here, this woman will be obligated just as a safek, because in fact she did become a nazir for some period of time, and she became tameh. She wasn't supposed to do that. So, okay, she could bring a chatat, but that's not called a partial sacrifice. It's just bringing one of the things because of some possibility of sin. But that doesn't challenge the rule. It's consistent with the rule that you're not actually bringing any sacrifice for the Nizirut. And so Abaye is able to answer the question. All right, so we solved that tangent. Now back to the main line of questioning against Rabbi Yochanan, who said that you can nullify half of a vow. The one that has the good bread, but not the other bread. Itibeh. האישה שנדרה בנזיר ונטמאת, ואחר כך הפר בעלה, מביאה חטאת העוף, and מביאה עולת העוף. This question is from a braita that is very, very similar to the braita that we just read. It's a little bit different. So she became Nazira, and now she became Tameh. And then the husband undid it. She has to bring Hatata off, and not she brings the Chata'of and not the Olat Ta'of. Okay, here it says explicitly she became Tameh. In the previous case, it didn't say, that previous case where she separated an animal. Okay, so anyway, in this Baraita, she becomes Tameh. So we're going to use this Baraita as a challenge to Rabbi Yochanan. According to Rabbi Yochanan, that the husband can undo only part of a vow that causes her affliction. Well, that would be the wine part. Not having wine, that's a cause of affliction. But he cannot undo the part of the vow that does not cause her affliction. Well, not becoming Tameh Lamet, doesn't cause an affliction, right? If someone says, I'm not going to become Tameh Lamet, okay, good. So then they can't deal with dead bodies. They can't go to cemeteries, right? That's not an affliction. Therefore, part of the Nizirut vow should still apply, right? The part that has to do with Tum'ah should still apply, and the husband only has a right to undo the part that has to do with wine. So, if you say, like Rabbi Yochanan did, that he has a right only to undo the part that causes her affliction, but he cannot undo the part that does not give her affliction, well, Tum'ah does not give her affliction, so when she goes and she becomes Tameh, she should be fully liable, right? Maybe he would. Maybe he could be going on the part that he does, because he doesn't have to nullify it, but maybe he did nullify the part that is for the wine only, but there's no way that he'd be able to undo the part that would of the vow that would prohibit her to be coming Tameh Lamet, because there's no affliction there, and therefore she should be liable. Why come it says she's only liable to bring one bird? She should be liable to bring everything. And the answer is, actually, we could answer here the same way that we did before, that there's no Nazirut Lachasain. You can't be a partial Nazir. But we don't answer that question, which suggests that you actually can be a Nazir for one or two of the three prohibitions. When it said you can't be a partial Nazir, before it meant within one of the prohibitions. I can't say I'm just not going to have grape juice, but I can have wine skin. I'm not going to have this or this kind of wine, but I'm going to have the other kind of wine. That you can't split down the middle. But it sounds since we don't answer that question here, it sounds like you could be a Nazir only for Tumat Met, but not for wine. Okay. So what is the answer here? Amre mit tumat met name it la sa'ara. No, in fact, the husband can undo the part of the Nizirut vow, not only for wine, but also for becoming tameh lamet. Why? Tichtiv ve'acha yiten el libo. A pasuk in Kohelet says the living should keep it in mind. Keep what in mind? V'tanya Rabbi Omer, my tichtiv ve'acha yiten el libo. What should a person who's alive take to heart? Tispedun le, tibkun le, tikbar yikberun le. Person who's alive should make sure to eulogize others when they die. He should cry for them when they die. He should bury others when they die. Because, as Yogi Berra said, always go to other people's funerals, otherwise they won't come to yours. Right? This is exactly what the Gemara is saying. And maybe he got it from this, he was doing Daf Yomi. He knew this. All right? And so that's the idea. You should always give respect to others who pass away, take care of them, bury them, and so that, not that they themselves will, but that the community will take care of that person when he eventually dies. So what's the point? If a person makes a vow that they can't be tameh lamet, then that person, in this case this wife, she is not going to go to any funerals, to help out with burying anyone, she's not going to be crying for anyone, she's not going to eulogize anyone, and therefore she's going to lose out, because when she passes away, nobody is going to come and take care of her, because, remember, she never took care of anyone else. Therefore, this is called an affliction, not to be able to become tameh lamet, right? You can ask Kohanim, and they would say that this is not, being Kohen is a privilege, and so it includes a lot of privileges. But this is a difficult thing for Kohanim, that they can't go and enter the room and give eulogies there, and they can't do a lot of things, and it does cause difficulty. They can't go and visit. in a cemetery anytime they want. So therefore, that is called an affliction, and that explains this baraita. Even according to Rabbi Yochanan, this is called an affliction, and that's why she does not have to bring all of the korbanot. All right, we come to the next Mishnah. Konam she'ani nehena lebiriyot eno yachol lehafer. V'chola hi lehanot beleket shechicha ubepe'ah. Woman makes a vow, I am not receiving benefit from anyone. All biriyot, all living beings, all people. The husband cannot undo that. This is a challenge to Shemuel, who we saw in the previous daf, says if she says, I'm not going to benefit from one person, the husband can annul it, because who knows, maybe she'll need that one person. Okay, we didn't ask from this Mishnah. Maybe the Gemara would answer that this Mishnah, remember the whole Perek is Rabbi Yosef only, and so as Shemuel said, I'm not following Rabbi Yosef, I'm following the Rabbanan. Okay, so that's how we could answer it. Anyway, the point here is that he cannot undo it, and the question is why. Now, it does have another clause that may be the explanation of why. The Gemara is going to give 3 explanations to this phrase. But the main point is that even though she said, I'm not going to benefit from anyone, she is allowed to benefit from the gleanings, the forgotten sheaves, and the corners that are left by a farm owner for the poor. Because he leaves them for the poor, so then he gives up ownership of them. And so if a woman comes and she's going to collect from the corner of the field, she's not benefiting from that field owner, because the field owner donated it, right? Made it property of all the poor. It's hefker. Any poor person has a right to it, so therefore she is not directly benefiting from the field owner. All that is permitted. This can be understood as a reason. How come the husband cannot undo it? Because after all, she can still live. It's not that she's going to starve to death. She'll just go and get leket shecham peah. She's poor because she can't get any benefit from anybody. So that's one explanation, as we'll see. Okay, Kunam Kohanim Leviim Nehenim Li Yitelu al Korchov. Someone says, I make a prohibition like a korban for Kohanim and Leviim to benefit from me. So now he has produce, he takes terumah, he takes maaser, he's separating them there. But no Kohanim or Leviim can take them because he made a prohibition. The law is that they can come and take it against his will. Even though he made this prohibition that they cannot benefit from him, that's true. They can't go into his house and just, enjoy sitting down in his couch. That they wouldn't be able to do. But this, because it's separated, the terumah already belongs to the Kohanim and the maaser belongs to the Levi. So they're only taking what's theirs already. It's kind of similar to the first case where what a person separates for the poor already belongs to the poor, and so it doesn't violate the vow. Here also does not violate the vow. They can come and take it. Kohanim elu v'im elu nehenim li yitilu acherim. However, if a person, the farmer says these particular Kohanim or these particular Leviim, he gets into a fight. He doesn't like this family, the Levi family. So this particular family, they cannot benefit from me. In that case, those guys can't, because other Leviim can come and take it. So since he didn't say all Kohanim, all Leviim, and only some, so when he separates it's separated for some Kohanim, some Leviim, since there are some who can come and take it. So it belongs to them. Those Kohanim that he prohibited from the vow would not be able to take it. Other people can. All right, that's the Mishnah. Gemara asks, Alma efshar de mitzena midile miklal deba la bichlal biriyot hu. So now we're interpreting the first line. Let's take it just by itself. The first line says, if a woman says, I'm not going to benefit from anyone, the husband cannot annul it. Now, why not? How's she going to live, right? And this is going to be a major affliction to her. Oh, maybe because she can benefit from her husband. When she said, I'm not going to have any benefit from anyone in the world, surely she meant, except for my husband. She didn't mean my husband also, because she's dependent on her husband for sustenance. And so we can see from here that the reason why the husband cannot annul it, see, if she says, I'm not going to eat, then the husband can annul it, right? We saw that already. If she's not going to eat fruit, the husband can annul it. That surely is an affliction. But if she says, I'm not going to benefit from anyone, the husband cannot annul it, must be because she has a source of sustenance, and means from her husband. She didn't mean to include her husband. So from that line, it sounds like a husband is not included in the category of bidiyot when she says the vow in her mind. All right, that's a good inference. But emasefa yechola lehenot beleket shecha upeah. The next line says when she makes this vow, she can. Sounds like it's saying only. She can only benefit from leket shecha upeah, that farmer leaves for the poor. Now, she's poor, so she can take them. But it sounds like she can only benefit from that, but not from her husband. Sounds like since she can only take from there and not from her husband, it sounds like the husband is included in the category of bidiyot. So when she says, I cannot benefit from all beings, that includes her husband. That's why she has to go and take only from the gleanings. And so we have an excluded middle here. Entrance from the first line and entrance from the second line contradict each other. All right, we're going to have three answers to this. Amar ula, le'olam la bichlal bidiotu. Or really, the husband is not included in the bidiyot, and so therefore she can get sustenance from the husband. Ve'od en yachol lehafer mipnei sheyechola lehanot beleket shechecha upeah. Now, all that was one reason why he cannot undo it, because she can benefit from him. That's reason number one. And now there's a second reason why he cannot undo it, because she can also benefit from the gleanings. So the Mishnah is actually giving two options. When she says, I'm not going to benefit from all people, he cannot annul it because she can still get her sustenance from the husband, who's not included, or from the gleanings, which are also not included. Okay, that's answer number one. Rava amar le'olam ba'al bichlal b'riyotu u'matam kamar matam en yachol lafer mipnei sheyochola lehanot beleket shecha upeah. No, Rava says the husband is included in the prohibition because he's part of b'riyot. She cannot benefit from the husband, and the Mishnah is structured as a law and the reason. What's the reason why the husband cannot undo the vow? Because she has a means to sustenance, which is the gleanings. So really, she cannot benefit from the husband, but nevertheless, he cannot undo it because of the gleanings. So really, it's only one source of sustenance that she has. All right. Third answer, Rav Nachman Amar, Le'olam ba'al la bichlal beriyotu. Maybe, in fact, the husband is not included. So we're going back to what Ula says. He's not included, therefore she can benefit from the husband. It's similar to Ula, but it's giving the two options in a time sequence. While she's married, he cannot undo it because she can benefit from her husband. Husband is not included in the prohibition of the vow. And even if she should get divorced, when she gets divorced, then she can go and get lechet shiupeah, because then she's really totally poor. She can't benefit. She's not. Even people would give her gifts or sell her things, but she can't benefit from anyone. So therefore, it's like she's effectively poor. And so when she gets divorced, she can take leket shecha upeah. That's the third answer. All right. Well, we should finish off this topic. Because we're going to have a challenge to Rav Nachman. Really, do you think that a husband is not part of the phrase bidiyot, and therefore she can benefit from the husband? Netula ani min hayudim. A Mishnah coming up soon says that if she makes a vow, I am removed from the Jews, by which she means I am not going to have marital relations with any Jews. So Mishnah there teaches that he can undo part of the vow that has to do with him, and therefore they will be permitted, that husband and wife, to have relations, although should they get divorced, she will continue to be prohibited to all other Jews. So this is a good example of beno lebena. This will affect their relationship. Will surely affect their relationship. So he can annul that part that affects their relationship, but he cannot annul the rest of it. Okay, so now what's the point? What's the question from here? She didn't specify the husband's just. She should have said, I am prohibited from the Jews. Now we're comparing Jews to bidiot, everyone, which is probably what she means anyway. She doesn't mean that she'll be permitted to a non-Jew. That's not in her mind that she's going to go marry a non-Jew one day. She means anyone that I could even possibly marry is prohibited to me. So here, in this case, he has to annul it because the husband is included in the general category. And if you say that Rav Nachman, that is what Rav Nachman said, that a husband is not included in bidiot, then he should also not be included here. And then if he's going to annul it, she may be able to annul it as inui nefesh, as affliction. We discussed above, is this considered affliction or not? So if you do, then he can annul it. But if it was inui nefesh, then you would annul it for all people forever, right? Because annulment through affliction, he can do, and that sticks forever. Only if it's benol bena, if it's something that affects them, then he can annul it only to the extent that affects them. But once they get divorced, or to the extent that it applies to other people, he cannot annul. What you see from this Mishnah is that this is not he's not annulling it as inui nefesh. He's annulling it only because it's beno lebena, and he has to annul it because he is included. So why is he included in Yehudim if a husband is not included in bidiot? And the answer is, oh, it depends on the context. In this context, it's clear, right, that she meant to prohibit herself to something that is permitted. She is prohibited from any other man in any case while she's married. And she is married right now. So what's she going to do? While she's married, she can take a vow, I'm not going to be with anybody else. Well, you can't be with anybody else besides your husband anyway. Obviously, she meant to add a prohibition and say, I'm prohibited to all Jews, including her husband, right? I don't know, she's angry at her husband, and she says, sometimes, I never experienced this, but a wife gets angry at her husband, and she says, I hate all men, right? And so she's doing something like that. So obviously, it's directed primarily to her husband. Whereas in the case where she says beforehand, I'm not going to benefit from bidiyot, from all people, that is not necessarily directed to her husband. Maybe it's actually the opposite. I'm only dependent on you, my husband. I don't need help from anybody else. So the context there in bidiyot shows that she is excluding her husband. The context here, Yehudim, implies that she is including. And that's why you have to look at each context. Remember, vows only go by what the person has in mind. And so you can tell from the context what the person has in mind, and that solves the problem. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.